James with TTB Fab, and I've been getting a lot of questions on Instagram about the Grand Tracker, so figured we'd do a walk around and full discussion on everything that's entailed with it. Tracker started out, basically cut the whole front end out of this, swapped in a complete Dana 44 out of a Bronco, did a full frame chop off from the firewall forward, and grafted in that frame from it so that I could have a full TTB front end in this rig and get those whoop scissors so I can have all the travel out of it instead of trying to mess with the McPherson strut that it originally came with. In doing so, we wound up tearing everything apart in the front, pulled the beams apart, cut everything down on them, wound up putting Desolate Motorsports uniballs in the beam ends. We put a whole plate kit on there between me and Nate Morgan. Wound up cutting all the plates out of there just using CAD, which was, cardboard aided design. And welded everything on there, did all that within my shop at home. We're using King 3.0 internal bypass shocks, 12-inch stroke, netting about 16 inches of travel. We have Fox 2.0 3-inch stroke bump stops up front, and then limit straps as well. The radius arms themselves are 36-inch long, 2-inch, 250 wall with 7/8 FK Heims on them. The differential has 513 gears with a Spartan locker inside. Drive shafts are by Arizona Differential. They do some pretty sweet drive shafts out there, so had them build that. Wasn't something I was going to mess with. Steering itself, that's all out of a ambulance model, so it's upgraded, thicker steel, bigger joints, and then that's attached to a 3-inch drop pitman arm. Minworks out in Apache Junction in Arizona here redid the whole steering box for me, built it up, made it ready to go so that it could turn 33s without a problem. He also added ports in the event that I do want to put a hydro assist on it. So that's all in place, ready to go for down the road. Right now it's working great as is. I really don't see a need for it yet. Ball joints are just regular old Mevotech TTXs in there. They seem to be holding up okay. And then everything else is basically stock as far as axle shafts and stuff inside. I figure 33s should hold up just fine on stock axles for this thing. It's fairly light compared to a Bronco. Moving down the back, rear end side of it, we have a Ford 8.8 rear. It is out of a 2001 F-150, so it's not 5-on-5.5. I wound up having to re-drill the axles and the drums so that that would accept the 5-on-5.5, so that's the same as the front. Inside we have 513 gears with Spartan locker again. Nothing fancy inside of it. Stock axle shafts, using Iron Horse truss across the back of it. 14-inch Fox 2.0 coilovers on the back. Realistically, I could go bigger, but the back of the rig is only about 1,200 pounds. It doesn't need a super big shock to do what I needed to do off-road. It is getting close to max on valving for that. These are shocks that I valved myself. The front shocks were all done by AccuTune. They did a pretty good job on the front there. I really didn't have to mess much with those. Also has Fox 2.0 3-inch stroke bumps in the back. Links themselves are again 2-inch 250 wall 36-inch long links, both lower and upper. It is a 3-link with a panhard bar, so it doesn't have the normal crab walking that happens as you flex this thing out going down trails and that for rock crawling, but it does have the normal swing side to side. So with that said, I do need a length in the actual panhard bar itself. It's too short. I wound up being able to create more room to move it across. So that'll be something future down the road. Beyond that, tires themselves, 33, 12, 50, 15 Falcon ATW4s on American Racing, fake beadlock, 15-inch wheels, 15x8s. And everything on the back of this, both frame in front and back, has been completely plated with 1/8 inch or 3/16 plate. So that way the frame can hold up to everything that I'm doing with this in the Buse off-road. Again, drive shaft on the back of this, made by Arizona Drive Shaft. Let them handle that. This thing spins nice and smooth going 80 miles an hour down the highway. Drivetrain wise, so in this is a stock 2.5 liter V6 that originally came in this rig. I wound up adding a T3, T4 turbo to it, just basically welding a T3 flange on top of the exhaust manifold so that it can work with the whole system. It uses the passenger side bank, exhaust comes out, goes down underneath the transmission, comes back up and feeds into the driver's side exhaust bank, then goes through the turbo, comes out a downpipe, and then out the exhaust through the back. So it's not your typical way that you would route a turbo setup, but it fits nice and tightly in here, works extremely well. Engine management wise, still a stock computer where there's an AEM FIC6 that piggybacks on top of it so that I'm able to go in there and tune fueling and timing to make this thing run like it should at 10 PSI a boost. So we have blow-off valve, typical stuff on there you need for a turbo, blow-off valve, wastegate, all that stuff in line. Factory fuel pressure regulator works just fine as a one-to-one fuel pressure increase as boost comes on. Realistically, this engine's pretty much ready to go and handle higher boost if I want. Runs 91 octane on 10 pounds of boost, as I said. Probably looking at bumping this thing up to about 12, 13 pounds of boost down here in the road. From there, we have a Jeep power steering pump in this. It's a TC style pump. The factory pump was meant for a rack and pinion. It's not enough volume or pressure to run the steering box that it needs to. So again, made my own bracket, fabbed in, put in a Jeep power steering pump for now until I can get a pump down to Minworks and have him modify one so that I have a little higher flow, a little more pressure for that ram assist down the road. It does have a Premier Power Welder in it. We do a lot of off-roading out here in Arizona and going across hundreds of miles in the desert, either by myself or with a group of friends. And I hated the fact that in the event something broke, especially being as custom as this thing is, not being able to get myself off the trail. So called Premier Power Welder. They wound up being able to take a factory alternator and modifying it to be 160 amps to work on this rig, bolt right in place, use their welder and everything to be used as factory in this. So I have the ability to go in and weld and do whatever I need to do on this rig or anybody else's rig. And it's come in handy a few different times. Other than that, it has a upgraded eBay radiator. Nothing special, it's just a thicker radiator, helps with it cooling, especially making more power now in Arizona heat and running AC. So it brought my temps from running around 220, 230 during the summertime to down around 200 degrees without an issue. And from there, moving back, is the factory Suzuki 4-speed automatic in here. This automatic is not meant to use the transfer case that is behind it. So doing a lot of research, found a Mitsubishi Montero from the specific late 80s, early 90s. You can get the output shaft out of it, which is an identical transmission to the transmission that's in this, other than fully hydraulic powered. You can take that output shaft and put it in the Suzuki transmission, and it has the exact same spline count and diameter as a Jeep output shaft from a AW4 or an XJ. So that said, it also uses the same adapter between transmission and transfer case. So swapped those parts over, they dropped right in, had to do a little bit of modifications here and there on different parts just to make sure everything worked like it should, going from hydraulic to an electronic transmission, and use that Mitsubishi adapter on there. And then I have for a transfer case, a Jeep 231 rebuilt transfer case underneath here. Initially, it's there for now until, or I put it in there for now to see if this was all gonna work, because that was the big keystone to take this from a passenger side drop vehicle to a driver side drop vehicle. Now that I know that this works, we'll be looking at doing an Atlas or something down the road. But in the meantime, it does have a slip yoke eliminator underneath there, runs 1310 U-joints. And then I have a JD Fab shifter set up inside of there so I can shift between, two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, low and high. Also put a TerraFlex 2-low, 4-low mod fork in there as well. So I can go between 4-low and 2-low just by moving the stick one little click. Body-wise, outside, again, this thing not only does desert stuff, it also does a lot of rock crawling. I'm not doing extreme rock crawling. I'm not doing extreme desert stuff. So it's good in a lot of areas. It's not the best at one. So on the front end, I have my own bumper for the front here that I built, and then it houses a Warren M8000 winch inside of there. It is at a slant, so I did have to kind of custom make for the fair lead and everything up front to fit everything in there, but it works well. An old bumper that I used to have on here is the same way, worked great for years and years. Side down here, I have rock rails that I built. Again, this is sleeved through the frame with 120 wall, 1.5 inch diameter, just regular heat welded cheap steel that goes down the length of the body. It's been protecting it. It's been on this rig for 10 years now, and I haven't had any issues with it. So it's worked out great, even though it's not the best stuff out there you can put on it. Backside, I have my own built tire carrier with my own built bumper. Just try to tuck everything up as high as I can, the best I can. The fuel tank itself has been moved up 2.5 inches as well from the factory position, trying to get more ground clearance underneath this, so when you're out running trails that you have a large drop off of, I'm not smashing the tank. But the spare tire carrier itself, it is attached to the rear door. So there's 3 points of attachments to keep this thing from wobbling when you're going down high speed stuff in the desert. And I've watched way too many videos of guys out there where you come up and you hit the back of this thing and you watch the tire just sit there and bounce back and forth. So when it does that, you wind up snapping off the pivot point on the side there and your spare tire goes off in the desert. So my idea was, after seeing a few different guys on Pirate come up with this, is a support underneath that sits in a cradle that's got a roller bearing on it, and then a pivot at the back of the door. So this pivot, when I open it, will swing at the same pivot as the rear door, so that I can take this and do whatever I need to do, but everything's nice and solid. I don't have to undo two different things at once. It's all held together. There's no rattles, there's no noises. It's been on this rig for, I think, close to 7 years at this point. And besides having to weld up one little crack inside the door, I haven't had any problems with it. It's been great. I even have a mount on the side here for me to put a 5-gallon jerry can if I need to for extra fuel. And of course, a nice little fire extinguisher for the just in case something's gonna happen issue. Inside is basically, this is how it sits 100% of the time. I don't change things, I don't move things in and out. This is basic setup, ready to go with everything I need to do, or what I would need off-road. I've got a full set of tools specific to the rig, so if I need stuff on there, I know I've got it in there ready to go. 45 quart Yeti cooler back there to help keep, you know, drinks nice and cold. I got food in there, whatever I need to do, I can go 3 days on that thing without a problem. I keep all of my tools inside these little ammo cans. The Premier Welder, power leads, all that stuff is inside of there. Spare steel, all of the welding rod and stuff is inside of there. It's also an airtight container so that we don't have any kind of contamination with moisture in that. All the spare fluids are in there with an Artec carrier that just sits on top, ratchet strapped in, and then a 10-pound CO2 tank that I use for filling up tires if I'm going on a long distance run where, you know, you're coming on the asphalt and you're gonna be running that for the next 60, 70 miles, air the tires back up and head on down the road. So nothing fancy, pretty simple, straightforward. Eventually I'll probably have spare axle shafts and stuff back here for the back, but who knows, we'll see. Hasn't been an issue at this point. Inside, basically stock, not a whole lot to it. I have 2 little ones that I take with me. So I have car seat stuff that usually go in here. They keep all the room back here for them. There's really not much to it. I keep it nice and clean best I can. Obviously it's an off-road rig, it's gonna get dirty. So it is what it is, and I'm not too concerned about it. But back seats pretty much stock. Front seats, again, stock. There's not much to them. This rig has 260,000 miles on it at this point, and it's still on the original seats, and they are still just as comfy as lower mile ones. I haven't had any problem with these in all the miles and stuff I put in this rig. So interior wise, I do have gauges up front. You have your air fuel meter up here. I have a boost gauge, and then I have a this is a fuel pressure gauge, but I can also hook it into a oil pressure sensor so I can watch oil pressure as well. There is no factory pressure gauge in this for me to monitor, so I can switch back and forth when the hotter temps come, make sure my oil temps aren't going through the roof. JD Fab shifters up here for the transfer case, stock shifter for all the stuff, you know, for factory transmission. Just a JVC cheapy radio inside, and then an ICOM V8000 VHF UHF radio that I use for anything that I needed to do as far as communicating with people on trail, or I know that we've got a long distance between us, between the front and the back. I have that there, knowing that we'll be able to communicate back and forth without an issue. Otherwise, that's it. I do have a RAM mount on top that I put my phone up there, and I'll use the Gaia GPS and kind of monitor trails and stuff that I'm going down. But that's it otherwise. All right, guys, that's the wrap up on the Grand Tracker. That's a quick kind of tour around on everything that we've done to it so far at this point. There's more to come. Please follow and click the link below, and there'll be more in-depth description on our website over there as far as how it went about the way that it is and everything that came up from it. If you do have more questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I'll be more than happy to do another video to answer those questions and move forward from there.